Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to this beautiful Saturday afternoon here in Shaker Heights, Ohio. My name is Allison Henline and I am the Education and Outreach Manager here at the Shaker Historical Society located right here in Shaker Heights, Ohio. And I am joined today by Jessica Pinsky of the Praxis Fiber Workshop. She's the director of the Praxis Fiber Workshop. And she's going to be talking to us today about the Indigo project that they had started at Praxis and how everyone in the community can be involved and how we at Shaker Historical Society are going to be involved. So if you have any questions at all throughout any of this presentation, or if you're watching this as a pre-recorded thing, you know, whether that's a week, a month, a year from now, feel free to post any comments or questions down below and I will try and ask them live. And if you have any questions post date, please feel free to still ask them and we will do our best to answer them. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it on over to Jessica, who is going to start her presentation.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you to everyone in Shaker for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and I'm thrilled to introduce this project. So if you just give me one moment, I'm going to share my screen because we would all rather look at beautiful images. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about the history of this project, very briefly about Praxis and how we came to become really, really passionate about growing natural indigo and really what is that and what does it mean? And Praxis Fiber Workshop is a community textile organization located in the heart of the Waterloo Arts District in North Collinwood. So it's not too far from Shaker. And we have about a 7,000 square foot workshop located right on Waterloo Road, where we have a gallery space. We offer classes and studio space for all things fiber art. So our primary focus tends to be weaving. We have about 24 floor looms, but we teach classes in spinning, fabric dyeing, felting, you name it, we do it and we love it. And the origin of the organization is actually we are a partner of the Cleveland Institute of Art, because as they changed their curriculum in their fiber art department, it left the looms that formerly belonged to CIA sort of without a home. And Praxis has opened up as a result of that decision. And it's been a wonderful partnership, and it's only expanded the community and our reach for what fiber art can do. And because we've been associated with this university, our mission really is in education. And when we think about the education of textiles, we think about an entire umbrella of what can be taught under that umbrella about fiber and fiber art and textiles. And to me, that means that we're starting from the seed. It's everything like, what is a fiber? How does it grow? All the way to the most sophisticated technological equipment. So it's my passion and mission at Praxis to educate on that full spectrum. And so that's where the Natural Dye Project was really born. From the very beginning, in 2015, when we opened, I knew we needed to grow natural dye. And I quickly, in my early years of educating around textiles, met the artist Roland Ricketts, who is based in Bloomington, Indiana at Indiana State. And he is very passionate indigo grower. And he focuses and specializes in the Japanese species of natural indigo. And I met Roland early on and became completely fascinated and excited by his project in Indiana, and knew that we had to have something similar going on in Cleveland. So what does that mean for a small organization that has no experience in gardening or growing anything? That meant that we had a huge learning curve ahead. So I'll start to explain why we chose indigo and what about it was so exciting, because there are lots of things in nature that yield color, and that color fixes to the fabric in different ways. But the reason that an artist could love indigo so much, it is the color that everyone associates with our denim blue jeans. So, you know, almost, I would say, 100% of the denim that we might be wearing in our wardrobe today is dyed using a synthetic version of what was formerly a natural dye. And so the reason that indigo has been beloved by many cultures for hundreds and thousands of years is because it has extreme depth of color. It's very deep, gorgeous, rich blue, but there's also a permanence to it that stands out from other natural dyes, meaning that it lasts a very long time. And it also is fairly easy to use. Once you've made it as a dye bath, it doesn't require any additional steps. You just put the fabric in the liquid and out it comes, perfectly dyed blue piece of fabric. So who wouldn't want to do that? So with Roland as our guide, we set forth growing the Japanese version of this plant. And I'm just going to take a quick minute to explain why we chose the Japanese species. The other most common species known to the United States is the African species of indigo. And the most obvious reason is because one is because we were learning from Roland, who grows the Japanese species. And the second is because the climate in Northeast Ohio is most similar to the climate in Japan, which makes the species happier here than its African brothers or sisters. But it's important to note that most of the natural indigo that has been grown in the history of the United States is the African strain of indigo. And actually, indigo came from Africa to the United States during slavery, and it was one of the first plantation cash crops. And most people really don't know, I would say, about that history. We think about plantation crops and we think about tobacco and we think about cotton, but we don't realize what a significant stain indigo had on that part of American history. And so it's important to us that we include that in the education and sort of empower that history and make sure that we're growing indigo in a socially responsible way. I'll also note that I mentioned that the synthetic indigo has really taken over, and it really does contribute greatly to the amount of pollution that the textile industry is contributing to our planet. So the synthetic version is not that friendly, and so there's lots of reasons that we should become in love with the process of growing natural indigo. And I do believe we're going to have another discussion sometime in April where we have kind of a book club where we do some reading and talk more as a community about how indigo has impacted our society. And I'd love you all to stay tuned for that. So I'm just going to kind of keep going about the process of indigo. We decided to grow, we leased land from the Cleveland Land Bank. Yes, not to be confused with the Cleveland Seed Bank, who I was just about to talk about. So we leased 2 parcels in our neighborhood in North Collinwood, and you could tell from the first slide that it's really in the heart of the residential neighborhood, which is a big reason why we chose it. And we started growing seed, and the first call we made was to the Cleveland Seed Bank. We thought, who better to partner with to teach us about how to start seeds and grow seeds? Our first seeds did come from Roland, and this is a photograph of year 1 in 2017, what our seeds from Roland looked like. And we were late in the season, and he sent us seeds that he told us would be 30% germination, meaning 30 of 100 seeds would germinate. But we had unbelievable success with them in the first year, definitely more like 60 or 70%. And it was absolutely beautiful. This is what the seedlings look like when they are young and still in the greenhouse getting ready to be transplanted. And this is an image of our garden space. This was the first year. This photo was taken by Cleveland photographer Stephen Bivens. And this is one of the, this was an amazing, exciting day of the community coming out together. And over the course of this day and weekend, probably 50 people participated in laying out about half an acre, or a quarter acre, excuse me, of natural indigo. So we spent the first year and we worked so hard to grow this indigo. We watered, we weeded, we fertilized, we really got our hands dirty. And after the first year, after the full harvest, going to Indiana, learning how to harvest the plant, coming back to Cleveland, teaching the community, big volunteer days again, multiple times throughout the summer. At the end of the summer, we weighed our crop. And we had 100 pounds of dried indigo leaves that we had harvested from our plants. And we were very proud of ourselves. And we called Roland and said, this is very exciting. We'd like to start processing our indigo. And he said, that's great. You did awesome. You're about a quarter of the way there. It will require about 400 pounds of natural indigo in order to process in the traditional Japanese way. And we thought, we better grow more indigo. So this is an image of the following year. in 2019. I think I was wrong. The first year was in 2019. And we partnered with Hospice of the Western Reserve, which have administrative offices in South Collinwood. And it's also located across the street from Hannah Gibbons Elementary School. And we went to the students and said, how would you like to help us grow indigo? And they were very, very excited. And so this is an image of the middle school, age grade 6 through 8, helping us plant on 2 lots, 2 parcels, so similar size, similar scale to our original location in South Collinwood. So what happens once you plant is you take care of for the plants, and once they mature, you harvest them. And this is a picture of what that harvest looks like on a big scale. And the plants are cut from the base, and they are placed on tarps to flash dry in the sun. And once the leaves are dry, they're separated from the stems because it's only the leaves themselves that hold the blue color. And this is what the indigo looks like once it's been dried and separated from the stems. So this is what you bag at the end of the season and feel very, very proud about growing. And you can see that it has a really rich, deep kind of evergreen teal color. And those first 2 years growing indigo were amazing for our community. We would have often indigo dye parties on site at the garden. We would engage all of our neighbors. We would really be able to demonstrate community in this space. And it was wonderful. And it became a big part of what we programmed and look forward to throughout our year at Praxis. And so then, of course, we all know what happened in 2020. Here's just another image of just fun to be had at the Natural Dye Garden. And this is an image of Kim Lessman, who is an employee at the Cleveland Seed Bank. And this is just our seed harvest at the end of the growing season. We leave a row of indigo and we never harvest that row, and we let it go all the way to seed. And so what you're looking at is the flower, eventual flower of the indigo, and in every one of those white petals is a tiny seed. And we harvest the seeds. We'll let that bundle that Kimmy is holding dry, and in the end separate and clean the seed and separate it from the plant matter. And then that's the seed that we use for the next year. So this is now our 3rd year, I think maybe even 4th generation of seed from that very first batch from Roland. And so it's gorgeous and has been growing really well. So just to tell you a little bit more about the processing, we did with the after 2020, which I'll tell you about in a second, make our 400-pound mark. It took us 3 years to grow 400 pounds of natural indigo. And and this is a pile of what that looked like. And it was pretty amazing to have come that far and grown that much. And we built a special processing floor. This is a garage located outside of Praxis on the same property. And the floor consists of basically a 12-foot by 12-foot by 4-foot deep hole in the ground that's been backfilled with gravel and sand and clay. So it's essentially a large drain. And we're watering it. The composting process took about 100 days. It took us actually a little less, between 90 and 100 days, to compost the indigo by watering it and turning it weekly for those 100 days. So this is a picture of what it looked like about halfway through. So you can see the pile has shrunk considerably. And you can see the composting thermometer in the center where we were checking to make sure that the temperature was active. And at the end, this is what it looked like. So it just is like the most gorgeous, rich, deep black kind of mulch looking material. And I'm happy to report, although I don't have a picture of it, that just this week we started the first vat. It's in a 55-gallon drum. Using this composted indigo. And I'll tell you that as part of the program that we've developed since COVID, we are exchanging growing indigo at home for use of the natural indigo at Praxis. And I'm going to take a minute now to talk about that program. So, in the beginning of 2020, about exactly a year ago, we realized that we would not be able to gather in our large groups at the garden for growing and harvesting over the season like we normally would. And we couldn't let go of this project. It just was too important to us. And we wanted to see it thrive even throughout COVID. And so we came up with the idea to offer a volunteer to grow indigo at home. Basically, adopt indigo for Praxis is what we called it. And we put together the same amount, we grew the same amount of seeds that we normally would. And then we asked the community to adopt 5 plants and to care for them in their home gardens the same way we would on site at Praxis, and follow weekly instructional videos that I put out every week in the beginning, and then bi-weekly as it comes to the end of the season, which just tells you how to do it, how to grow it, what's all of the different ways. And this is what you're looking at is about 75 kits that we put out on site at our garden in May of last year for volunteers to pick up at will at their convenience. And what's in the kit is what turned out to be 5 plants. So it's basically a big chunk that you'll separate yourselves, and 2 different types of fertilizer. And then following the videos tells you exactly what to do throughout the entire season. And at the end of this season, you would deliver your dried, harvested indigo leaves to Praxis. And in exchange, we would offer you a time to use the natural indigo vat and experience what the dye does as a sort of trade. And the program was an amazing success. This is a collage of image from after the seedlings had been growing for a few weeks. I asked everyone for a photo. And so here's a collage of where and how a lot of these plants were growing in people's homes. So you can see that some people were growing in beds, some people directly in the ground, some people in pots. It was all great. And we kind of went through this really challenging year, but together. And people were very eager and excited to participate in something when it felt like there was nothing going on, and to be part of something bigger. And it was so satisfying. It personally, I think it really helped me get through the year and gave me something to look forward to. So at the end, I think our volunteers grew about 100 pounds of indigo total, which is exactly what we made in that first year. And in the end, it was much less actually than we would have on 2 lots of our own. So we were blown away by the success, and thought, even though we are going to go back to growing at full scale at Praxis this year, we have to continue this adoption program even into 2021. And so we've actually tripled the scale. So we've put a call out for volunteers. There's already a number of people a large number of people that are participating. So this is just going to be another wonderful experience to share, and and I couldn't be more excited about year 2 of working with the community in this new way. Oh, that picture didn't want to come. So I'll actually go back maybe, and we can sort of talk with questions if you'd like to on this image. But I don't know, Allison, do you have any questions, or does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? And I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, so again, this is an amazing project, and I just kind of wanted to share with everybody how I found Jessica in this project. I actually am a fiber artist myself. I like to knit and weave and to spin yarn. So I found them by complete happenstance, and I really love their project. I love what they've been doing with it. And it's such an amazing thing to see. And I knew it was something that the Shaker community, and especially us here at Shaker Historical Society, wanted to be involved in. So I'm really excited to be one of the places that we can have these plants at this year. We have a question from Rosalie, who asks, what conditions are required for the indigo plants to grow? So sun, water, what sort of conditions are best?
Thanks, Rosalie. That's a great question. So the indigo does like sun. So it's definitely doesn't want to be in the complete shade. But with that said, my yard does not get out 8 hours of sun a day. I would say that I get like 6 hours of direct sunlight a day, and that was absolutely fine. So as long as there's a chunk of the day where you have direct sunlight, that's great. That's definitely why lots of people decided to grow the plants in pots so that they could move them somewhere where there was more sun in their yard. And truthfully, the pots did awesome. In a lot of those cases, you're buying really nice soil to put in the pots versus using the soil that's in your yard. So the potted plants do great. So if you're worried about shade, that is what I would recommend. And then in terms of water, I make sure to remind everybody in the weekly videos to stay on top of the water, especially as the summer gets hotter. In the beginning, you're watering every other day, and towards the middle end of the season, you can space it out to every third or fourth day. So, and then of course it rains too, which is nice. Especially for us, that's the day that we don't have to turn on our irrigation system for the whole lot. So we love the rain in the summer. So hopefully that answers your questions. There's some more facts on the Praxis website, which Allison will share with everyone, that answer some of those questions. But sun and water are going to be good friends to the indigo. The other thing I'll mention is that, one of the things that the video does is show you how to spot signs of stress for your plants, help you troubleshoot if things aren't going well. But we also understand that this is too many variables for us to really all control. And the main purpose of the project is to educate and to have a collective experience. And so if we got no indigo at the end, we would still feel like it was a success. So I do want it to take the pressure off. If you're worried that you're not going to do, you don't have any planting experience, like what if my plants die? Great. At least you know a lot about indigo, and you could have a cool conversation with somebody as a result of participating. And then I did also want to mention, this is Allison and I were talking. So Allison is going to host at Shaker Historical Society a couple raised beds devoted solely to indigo, which is amazing. Thank you so much. And so that's a great opportunity for people who don't really want to take on the role at home, but they still want to stop by and participate. You can do that through the Shaker Historical Society, and they'll need your help for harvesting and watering and that kind of stuff too. So that's a great way to share. And then if you also, this has happened before where two friends have shared one kit. Like, yeah, we want the experience, but we don't want really that much. We just want one or two plants. Then that would be wonderful. And you could share the kit with a friend, or just let us know and we can give you less plants.
Very cool. So a couple of very much related questions. So we have a question from Megan who's asking, how can we adopt plants this year? One is like the sign up date, when's the cutoff date? Is it on an on-rolling basis? And then you mentioned the kit sizes. So I guess a couple questions here. How many plants are in a kit typically?
Great. So there are 5 plants in each kit. And the space requirements are that they are planted 12 inches apart. And so in some cases, like if you look, this is a good picture to stop on actually, because if you can see your screen enough, there are some times where they're growing in a row and sometimes where they're kind of like in a group. So you can assess the size of your space and kind of pick the orientation that will work. As far as timeline goes, we opened this project up to a sign-up sheet on Monday, and it is filling fast. So we are, I definitely want to give, this week for your community to sign up, but Allison is going to share the sign up link and I will go to the next slide. It's easier to share it. Maybe we could even put it in the chat or in the comments, and you should sign up right now. If you want to participate. I want everybody who wants to participate to have the opportunity, but we also have only so many seeds. So we do have a lot of seeds. So we'll do as many people as we possibly can. And but I would encourage everyone to sign up quickly. And then as far as when the whole thing will begin, we are going to start the seeds, as in plant them in the greenhouse next week. So it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to mature into seedlings, and it depends on all of the variables. So we're going to see what the weather does. We'll see how the seedlings do, and our goal is somewhere between Mother's Day and Memorial Day, and it will be over a weekend. And what we'll do is we'll put all of the kits out. If you are participating through Shaker, there will be a pickup site on location at Shaker Historical Society, or you can pick up directly at Praxis at our natural dye garden. And that is how, and we will let you know as soon as possible what we expect that timeline to be. And I'm hoping it's the weekend after Mother's Day. So that's my goal. And I'll keep everyone posted, and we'll try to give you ample time to plan. And then of course, we'll be as flexible as we can about accommodating everyone.
Awesome. So another question, does it self-sow? And when it does bloom, do volunteers harvest it before it blooms? Like, what's the harvest thing like for this?
I guess I'm not sure what the question of self-sowing means. As far as the seeds, I think that's referring to the seeds, and we're going to sow the seeds ourselves. I hope I answered your question. I'll be happy to answer that more.
I think they're asking if it spreads. Like, does it spread once it's planted, or is it self-containing?
Yes, very contained, and I'll explain why. So remember, we're not going for the flower, we're going for the leaves. And so the second that it starts to flower, the energy is going in the wrong place. So we're going to harvest before the flowers start to bud. And so you'll notice that the leaves will become about the size of your hand. So they're pretty large. They'll be really rich green. They'll be very relaxed. The plant will feel very full. And then you'll know it's the right time to harvest. And you'll cut the plant at the base, and then it will start to grow again very quickly. And we will get between 2 and 3 harvests over the course of the season. At the very end of the season, I've had some volunteers that decided to harvest their seeds, but we don't require that. We are harvesting the seeds for next year, and we have a lot of indigo grown and dedicated just to seed. So that is not on you all, but if you're up for an adventure, then I think it would be an exciting thing to try, but it's a no pressure situation.
Okay, cool. I think another question from Facebook, Sheila asks, in addition to indigo, are there any other companion plants or dye plants that they could include in their home garden?
I love that question. There are so many plants that yield color, but the plant that we've grown that is the easiest and has like the most wonderful color is probably marigolds, and that the dyeing process will be very different for all other plants. Hibiscus is a beautiful flower that yields great color. You will be surprised what in nature is a good dye and what isn't. You would look at something like a red rose and think that's the most beautiful color. It must make a beautiful dye. But the truth is that the rose isn't very good at dyeing. It fades quickly and it turns to really kind of like a light tan color. So a lot of natural dyes come from roots and barks and other parts of the plant besides the flower. But if you're looking for something that looks pretty in your garden, marigolds for me every time.
Awesome. Okay, so I just had a couple of questions about, I know we were speaking before, and if anybody else has any questions about the Indigo project or about anything that you would like to be involved with here, as Jessica has mentioned, we are going to be hosting 2 raised garden beds here at Shaker Historical Society this summer. So starting, whenever we get the seedlings through the end of the harvest season, we will be hosting plants here at Shaker Historical Society. So if anybody in the Shaker community or in the larger community would like to be involved in the Indigo project, but maybe you're planning a vacation or you don't want to commit to a full project like this, we definitely need volunteers to help out as much as we can here at the museum. So if you're interested in volunteering in this project, please reach out to me. I will post our information in the chat and in the description below. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, that would definitely be of interest to anybody. But I had a couple of things about the process itself, and I know that along the way, we're going to be having a couple other workshops about these specific things. But just about the natural versus synthetic dyes, especially as you mentioned earlier, and I had talked to you a little bit prior to us starting this live discussion about the different vibrancy and the steadfastness of synthetic and natural dyes. If you would be able to just kind of talk a little bit about that, that would be really, really cool for me at least. And I think people would be interested to know like why we're doing this for whatever reason versus synthetic dyes.
Definitely. Okay, thanks for that question, that reminder. So I'll start by saying that synthetic dyes were developed in the late 1800s, and the first thing that happened was like an accident in a chemistry lab, which is like how every great thing is invented, is like a big accident. And so something happened, something was spilled, and it made purple. And that is what led the development of a laboratory controlled color. So that changed the entire textile industry after that. Before, you were relying on your dyes the same way you were relying on your food. You were growing what you needed to wear in your yard, in your plot, in the same way that you were growing your food. So with the Industrial Revolution came this, unbelievable surgence of using a synthetic version. It's easier to use. It takes less time. The colors can be much more vibrant and much more permanent because they're relying on a chemical bond that is instead of a natural bond, basically. So that made it very easy for the industry at large to say, we're making the shift. Like, why would we do that anymore? And I still feel really strongly that on a small scale, using a synthetic dye is a great option because you do have so much control over your color. And there are ways that as home dyers, basically, as artists like us, or interested artists, there's ways to do it safely at home, but truthfully it's not that safe because you're dealing with a powder usually, and powders and particulates are dangerous to inhale. There's once they're boiled, there's an emission happening into the air, which is potentially toxic. And it also uses a lot of water. And the water, this is on a small scale, I really don't think it's a problem. And that's why it really does work for lots of reasons. But I think when we look at the whole industry and see how those decisions have impact our global environment, you can see it being much more complicated. So usually most of the synthetic dye that's being used in the textile industry is happening in countries where pollution and waste is not regulated. So the water that you're using to rinse out the chemicals is being poured directly into our world's water sources and the same places that people are, swimming in and eating from and drinking and showering. So that is one of the reasons that I feel really, passionate about going kind of backwards to using natural dye as much as possible. And the other thing, I think, just from another perspective of the environmental issue is that we talk a lot about like eating locally and growing our food locally. And I think that our textiles, is the same way. There's like so many amazing TED Talks and information well beyond my expertise that talk about, all the different places, like for example, a cotton t-shirt, every country it touches, before it comes to you at home, and it's so much, it's traveled on so many planes, it's on so many modes of transportation and stuff like that. So I think that thinking about doing things locally, what does our climate and habitat here in Cleveland, Ohio, what can it do, to our textiles and our color and like the way that we live, that's really specific. And that's one of the interesting things that the Cleveland Seed Bank talks about a lot is adapting seeds to the local climate and making it so it's really like not native species necessarily, but adapted, and therefore the healthiest, best option to people living in this place. So that's, but I mean, I say that all to say that it's amazing that we have the technology to have all of it. I just think that the more that we can use natural dye, the better.
That is awesome. And I think it's a big thing, especially now, to think about, even though most of us haven't been leaving the house much to travel or, to go places, it's definitely something to think about, where does our clothes come, like, where do our clothes come from? And how can we impact and, lessen the carbon footprint of the things that we utilize and the things that we use every day. So I'm just thinking ahead now. Is there any cost to anybody that wants to be involved in this project?
We are trying to make that answer no. We are going to supply you with the plants, supply you with the fertilizers that you'll need. And if you run out of the fertilizers, we'll replenish for you. But I guess, it is your own water. I collect rainwater at my house and like amazingly use it to water for the entire summer. I can't believe it rains that much, but it does. And so that is one excellent way of saving money. Some people who are using raised beds and pots have bought their own soil. So the easiest thing to do and the cheapest way of doing it is to plant directly in your soil and see what happens. Composting at home is a great way to add nutrient to your soil, just saving food scraps and adding them into the soil. But certainly there's stuff you can buy. There's always stuff you can buy, but you don't have to. And I definitely wouldn't want price to impede someone's participation. So throw them in the ground and see what happens. It's just part of the adventure.
Definitely. So I just wanted to kind of wrap this up unless anybody else has any other questions. Please feel free to, again, comment anything that you have any questions down below. But just another one, how many harvests are there typically in a season of growing?
There's 2 to 3, depending on how it's going, but 2 is great. 1 is great, but we will get 2 to 3. Usually there's a third, and the third will take you through the end of September.
Okay, that's awesome. We have another question from Rosalie. She asked, do you sell any indigo seed for personal use, or might you in the future?
That's a great question. We are working on getting our license to be able to do that. It's an agricultural thing where you can't actually sell indigo without it. So we're working on that this year. For now, we're trying to do this program. If you're really interested, we could figure out a different way to trade. But we aren't going to sell seed this year. We're aiming to have seed available for sale next year. Great question. Working on it.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so I just have a question. So any of the, you mentioned that there is a 100-day composting that has to happen before you can extract the dye from the leaves itself. Now, is that something that would happen at the end of the growing season, in the fall, winter era, or is it something, how do you preserve this? Just, if somebody wants to be involved in this, where is the final product going to end up? And how long is it going to be before they could utilize their hard work?
What a great question. So to answer that question, of the 400 pounds that we composted over the winter, we now have enough indigo that's going to last us a couple years. So we don't have a huge pressure to 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 compost or process again this winter. So for all of you volunteering this season, you will use this past year's indigo when you come to experience it. Your leaves will get added to the next time we process, which my guess is will not be this winter, but will be next winter. So but then again, if we really grow 400 pounds this year, then we'll process this winter. So we don't have to, which is really nice. But we definitely can, and that's why we built the composting facility. The other thing that I'll mention about that is, you know, we are one of the only processing places in our region. There's only 2 others that I know of that do it this way in the United States, and Roland's is one of them. So one option could be a co-op in kind of situation for indigo growers from a farther reach, where people could grow indigo at home. They could send it to Praxis to process and exchange for some kind of like a co-op charge. So we have a lot of ideas of how to best utilize the facility and grow this project even further. But the thing that I'm most passionate about is how it can connect all of us to each other and all of us to an important topic. And so yeah, thank you all for so much. And like Allison said, if you have any other questions, she'll share my contact directly. The Praxis website gets you to me. The sign up has been shared. So we'll be in touch basically.
Yeah, definitely. And again, just to let everybody know, this is going to be like, we're starting to get the seeds. You have to sign up now if you would like to do this personally. The signups are going to go through quick, so make sure you sign up sooner rather than later. And we will be having ours here at the museum around the same time that we offer the ones to the community. So if you wanted to pick up your plants from us instead of from Praxis, just note that when you sign up. I'm sure that there will be a place to note that. And if not, you can always email me and Jessica, and we will work together on sorting that out, so that way we can get you your plants. Also, again, we will be having these on site here at the museum. If you can't commit to a full season of growing these yourself, we will definitely have opportunities for you to volunteer and be involved with ours here. We're always looking for volunteers outside, and we have a lot of awesome outdoor, socially distanced in-person programming happening this year at the Shaker Historical Society. So make sure to sign up to be a volunteer. I will also post the volunteer link in the description as well if you wanted to be involved. But with that being said, I don't see any other questions across the Zoom or on Facebook. But if anybody else has any other questions, please feel free to email us. Let us know if you want to be interested. Like I said, the signups will be posted in the description shortly following us posting this video and recording, and it will be available for you guys to reference as many times as you'd like. So I wanted to say another huge thank you to Jessica for sharing her time and expertise with us today here at the Shaker Historical Society and with the Shaker community. So thank you, Jessica, for letting us.
Thank you all.
It's so awesome to be involved. And I think with that, we're going to end our live stream. So I wanted to say again, thank you to everybody, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful sunshiny day here in Northeast Ohio. We don't get very many of these, it feels like, so the weather lately has been so nice that I think everyone should go and take advantage of it. But with that being said, we're going to end our live stream. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we will hopefully see you in the gardens this summer.